Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo, with your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to episode 845, Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you, as always, to everybody out there for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate you all very, very much. Today's episode is presented by Golf Dojo, your space, your time, your game. Bring your game to Golf Dojo, Western New York's best indoor golf experience. Visit mygolfdojo.com for more information. This is our Friday episode, final one of the week. Day 2 of Buffalo Bills training camp is now in the books. By the way, this is like the sweet spot of the year, folks. If you live in Buffalo and you're a summer guy, and I'm a summer guy, maybe if you're a fall guy or a spring guy, it's not the sweet spot of the year. But for me, this is Buffalo Bills training camp, late July through, say, the Erie County Fair, like that second or third week in August. That is like peak-ass summer. The weather is consistently good. And by good, I mean hot. I'm all for being hot. This is where you really start to get everything in. You know, you're going to Bills training camp if you can, but this is where you really start to get out and just live, because you know sooner or later it's going to start getting cold as shit. But this is where you start hitting the beer tents if you haven't done so already, the lawn fates, those summer concerts, just all the shit, the backyard barbecues when it's gorgeous out and you got cornhole going in the backyard, nice little JBL speaker with some tunes cranking on it, drinking some beers. This is peak ass time here in Western New York. And for the Buffalo Bills, like I said, this is just a great feeling. You kind of get some energy, some life as a football fan, because a long ass off season is finally over. And now we finally have some real live football to talk about, not just speculation and projecting. Now we could actually see things with our own eyes, read with our own eyes, watch clips, be there in person, and kind of be able to evaluate things and go over things that we are actually seeing. Want to let you know, quick programming note too. Speaking of the Buffalo Bills, one of my very favorites, arguably the best Buffalo Bills content creator in the game today, Joe Marino from Locked On Bills, is going to be, he lives in Carolina. He's coming up for training camp. He's going to be there from Saturday all through next week. Anyway, next Wednesday night on this show, he's going to be live with me from Sunny Reds in Lackawanna. Joe did a show with me last year live at Imperial Pizza during training camp, and it was awesome. I expect nothing less from Joe this time around as well. Tell you what, too, one of the most popular people out there, media content creators that there is. I was with him last year, and I was just blown away by how many Bills fans came up to him and introduced themselves and told Joe that he, they're a big fan of his, and got some selfies and photos with him. Some really cool shit. But anyway, that's going to be next Wednesday night live from Imperial. And I also want to throw out some flowers right now. Like, if you are on social media, especially more specifically Twitter, X, whatever the hell they call it, and you're not fortunate enough to be at camp, and you're looking for a couple Twitter accounts to follow from somebody who's not only just there, but is providing like unbelievably in-depth analysis in real time of what's going on during Bills practice, makes you kind of feel like you're there at St. John's Fisher, even if you're really not. I got to throw some love out to my guy, Anthony Brohaska from Cover One. His Twitter handle is @pro__anth. And through at least the first 2 days of practice, he has just absolutely crushed it. I've gotten a lot of information just from following him. I have not been through the first 2 days, at least anyway, out in person at training camp. I will be there at least a couple times for sure next week. Part of a group. We got like a media content creator, a couple fans actually that are knowledgeable Bills fans in this group, and kind of sharing information from people who are at practice, sharing some videos, some thoughts, some analysis, stuff like that of everything that's going on. So even if we're not there, we can kind of get a really good grip of what's going on. And day 2 of camp, I would say this is the title of this week's episode. And this won't be a very long episode, but the main theme from this episode is actually nothing to do with the practice itself at St. John's Fisher on Thursday. It's about the mentality of this offense seemingly right now. And offensive coordinator Joe Brady, he spoke to the media before practice on Thursday. And I was intrigued by that, as I always am when Joe Brady talks. I love listening to Joe Brady. I think he's a great football mind. I think he could be extremely honest and also animated when he's talking football with the media. I think it's just easily consumable when he talks, unlike some other coaches that just feel really kind of bland and vanilla to me. But that is definitely not Joe Brady. But anyway, he spoke before practice. And what he said to me personally, at least for me, intrigued me as much as anything actually come from practice. And it's glaring. If it wasn't already, it is glaring, folks, that this offense is going to be different than the Bills offense we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years. Now, whether that's good, whether that's bad, we'll learn in time. But this is going to be a different offense. Joe Brady used a term, and I don't know if he did it on purpose and if this is going to become some kind of mantra for this team for 2024. But I heard him say this term on Thursday and it resonated with me. Like every time there's a training camp practice, I start thinking in my mind, I'm like, all right, well, what are some key points? What are some talking points that we can include for the next episode? What is a central theme if we don't already have one before practice starts? And this episode was kind of one of those where like, what am I going to be talking about today? I knew this was going to be a solo show. Wasn't going to have a guest today. So I'm like, I'm looking for a couple of key points. And it ended up happening before practice even started because Joe Brady used the term everyone eats. And I love that. It's an everyone eats mentality when it comes to the Buffalo Bills, more specifically with this offense. And I feel like, we kind of knew that already. The Bills traded Stephon Diggs, who's been their alpha, their number one receiver for the last 4 years. And they did not sign anybody. They did not draft anybody. They did not trade for anybody that's going to take Stephon Diggs' role specifically, at least not initially anyway. So this isn't like a big surprise. Everyone eats. But this mentality that Joe Brady talked about today during practice or before practice, we're not just hearing it. I think through 2 days of training camp right now, we're actually seeing it. Because 2 days have seen 3 or 4 different pass catchers shine at different times in different ways. And another thing that Joe Brady talked about that I really liked a lot was when referring to wide receivers. He was asked a question, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it was something along the lines of, playing this position, he's playing the X position, or he's playing the slot, this and that. And Joe Brady pretty much said, we don't have positions. We do everything conceptually. And again, the Bills don't have a number one wide receiver. And I don't think the Bills and Joe Brady, they're not going to try to force that on anyone either. They're not going to, everyone assumes Dalton Kincaid is going to catch a ton of balls for a ton of yards. And he might, very well might. But I don't think it's going to be forced on him. I don't think Curtis Samuel, I don't think things are going to be forced on him. Keon Coleman, the rookie, the highly drafted rookie, the first pick of the team. I don't think it's going to be forced. Khalil Shakir playing, I'm sure, primarily in the slot, but he'll move around. I don't think it's going to be forced. They don't have a number one receiver, and they're not going to force having one either, because I think that would be very bad. I think one of the struggles with the Bills last year, at times at least, especially early in games, was forcing the ball to Stephon Diggs. I saw a stat from Warren Sharp from Sharp Football, and it was over the last 2 years, or maybe it was just last year, but I know it was the first 10 plays of a game. Stephon Diggs was the most targeted player in the entire NFL over a team's first 10 plays of a game. Now, I can't remember if that was just for last year or for sort of the last 2 years. I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't have it written down. But my point is, there were times, and I'm sure as a fan, you can go back and remember some of these games where it felt like they're trying to force the action a little bit, get Stephon Diggs going early. Not going to have that this year. I feel like this is a team where you could easily see as many as 5 guys for sure. 5 different guys lead this team in receiving yards in any given week. And I truly don't think that's hyperbole either. Like last year, Stephon Diggs, if he didn't lead the team in receiving yards, something wasn't right. That's not going to be the case this year. Dalton Kincaid can lead one week, Samuel the next, Shakir the next. Maybe Keon Coleman or MBS or someone catches a couple long passes. I think you're going to see a season where multiple players, have big weeks for this team. And on any given week, they are the alpha male for that specific week. And kind of sticking with the receivers here real quick, as to it pertains to Thursday's practice, day 2's practice. By all accounts, it was a very big day for Curtis Samuel. I want to put up a tweet. Matt Perino from Syracuse.com, a beat reporter, of course, for the Bills, co-host of Shout Buffalo Football Podcast alongside Ryan Talbot. He put out a tweet that kind of summarized day 2 for the Buffalo Bills and the offense. He said, Curtis Samuel had his breakout day today at camp. The last catch was sensational as he broke open on the right side with Cam Lewis in coverage. He's so explosive, and he's moving all over the place. Starting to see the vision for what he'll be in this offense, major key. And again, that was from Matt Perino. And that's really good to see. It's good to if you're watching it live, it's great to see if you're reading it, tweets, or, again, listening to post-game or post-practice. That's great. Curtis Samuel is expected to be a big part of this offense. Curtis Samuel has kind of been almost, to an extent, a little bit of a forgotten part. We spent so much time talking about this football team and this offense in the months leading up to camp. And that's because so many other things have happened. They've lost so many players. They lose Gabe Davis. They trade Stephon Diggs. Who are they going to draft? The mock draft after mock draft, all different types of players. Ultimately, they go to Keon Coleman. They sign MVS post-draft. They've signed Chase Claypool post-draft. I haven't really heard an awful lot about Curtis Samuel, but this was an early signing for the Bills, an early target in free agency for Brandon Beane. And he is a player with a good skill set who should really fit in this offense, because this appears to become, or on the verge of becoming, an offense that just is looking to be more versatile, looking to be more unpredictable. And Curtis Samuel can do a lot of different things. He can line up in the slot. He can line up on the outside, the X position. And he can, and through 2 days of training camp, has been lining up in the backfield. Like, he's catching passes out of the backfield in some looks. Curtis Samuel hasn't been like the most productive player in the NFL, but who you play with matters a ton. It matters a ton. And take a look at the quarterbacks that Curtis Samuel has had throwing him the football since, we'll go to like 2019 with Cam Newton, who by that time, Cam Newton was starting to get hurt a lot. But aside from Cam Newton, since 2019, he's had Kyle Allen, Teddy Bridgewater, Taylor Heineke, Sam Howell. Those have been the guys distributing the football to Curtis Samuel. And in all due respect, not really. Those guys suck. Those guys suck. And now he's in Buffalo and he's playing with Josh Allen. This just, from the moment he is signed, this has felt like potentially a really good fit. And I'm not going to fall into the trap, which I do, and we all do at times, getting a little too hyped about what we see at a training camp practice, especially one when the pads aren't even on yet. That's important as well. But it is certainly a good sign to see him have a good day and look good. You start to see signs of why the Bills targeted him. But going back to Joe Brady real quick here before the break, that's what I'm talking about. Yesterday's practice, day one's practice, I should say, Dalton Kincaid, by all accounts, he was a star. He caught like 3 touchdowns in red zone work. He looked great. Keon Coleman had some really good moments. Matt Collins made a couple plays. Day 2, it's Curtis Samuel stepping up and having a pretty big day. This is going to be an offense where the design, I think, is that old cliche, death by 1,000 cuts. That's what it feels like this offense is going to be. I'm really early on in camp, but it doesn't make me any less excited. I am excited about seeing exactly what Joe Brady, with an entire offense or offseason, to build his offense, to put his stamp, to put his vision on this offense. And I'm really excited to see how it's going to play out. And referring back to, I said Anthony Prohaska at the beginning of the show, talking about formations and things like that. One thing that Anthony pointed out that I really hadn't seen much before is, seems like through 2 days, the Bills are using an awful lot of motion, different looks, pre-snap movement, things like that. I think you're going to see, and if it's better or worse, we'll find out in time. But I think we're going to see an offense that's going to look pretty different than what we've seen over the last couple of years. All right, we're back. We're going over day 2 of camp here. And, I was talking about a little bit before the break with Joe Brady stuff. Another thing that Joe Brady talked about that really caught my ears was discussing Josh Allen and kind of saying that he wants to make sure Josh Allen has more of an ownership in this offense during camp, as opposed to just saying, here's the play, go run the play. Like, he wants Josh's thoughts and input into what's being called and how this offense is going to look as well. So I thought that was interesting. In terms of the running backs, 2 days in, haven't really heard much about any of the running backs. But again, going back to Joe Brady, kind of by design, Brady said that he can't really tell because there was questions asked about competition, like what kind of competition you expect behind James Cook, who's surely going to be the starter. And he talked about, you can't really see much until the pads go on. Like running back, that's a physical position. And when you're running around in a jersey and shorts, you can see some stuff, but without that physicality, it's really hard to tell how Ray Davis is going to look, how Ty Johnson is going to look. Although with Ty Johnson, you kind of get an idea. But as the pads go on, I think maybe you'll start to be able to see a little bit more. And if there is going to be a competition for that RB2 behind Cook, between Ray Davis, between Ty Johnson, I think that you'll start to see that marinate a little bit once the pads go on. A couple other notes, kind of going a little bit random here too as well. By all indications, Von Miller has looked pretty good through 2 practices. He spoke after practice, had a press conference, and he said that it's the best that he's felt in 2 years. And he may be right, probably is right. I certainly hope he's right. But I got to be honest with you, man. All the predictions, all the statements from Von Miller over the last couple of years that just haven't panned out. Some of them maybe in jest, like Odell Beckham Jr., or, we're going to sign this guy or trade for this guy, yada, yada, yada. None of that shit ever seemed to happen when Von Miller would say it would. So it's kind of like, I don't know, man. I have a hard time believing anything that this man says. But actions speak louder than words, of course. And again, by all accounts, he looks pretty fluid right now in camp. Again, can't tell too much. Let's not read too much into 2 days of camp when they're not even really hitting yet. But It is certainly promising, and I think it's going to be extremely necessary for the fortunes of this defense for Von Miller to look like he looked 2 years ago. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy, Leonard Floyd gone, did not do too much to replace Leonard Floyd. They're counting on him to have a pretty big year, which, sticking with that position, I saw a tweet on Thursday from Sal Capaccio from WGR. He reported that Dwayne Smoot was getting a little bit of work with the ones. Anthony Prohaska described a good pass rush by fifth-round rookie Javon Sullivan that would have been a sack. And I starting to feel like, you know what? This could end up being a nice little battle here for that fourth defensive end, that edge rusher spot behind the big three. Of course, the big three being Groot, A.J. Epinesa, and Von Miller. You're going to have four guys who play regularly. Sean McDermott loves, to a fault, I think, that rotation of playing at least four edge rushers. And we're assuming that Dwayne Smoot's getting that nod. And he probably will. Although I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not particularly high on Smoot, if we're being dead honest. But that said, most of the time, money talks. And his contract is paying him $1.75 million guaranteed. So short of being a disaster in camp in the preseason, short of turned out to be someone who's just a really poor fit, considering the money he got, kind of like O.J. Howard was a couple years ago. O.J. Howard got like $2 million guaranteed, and he still got cut at the end of camp. But unless he's a disaster, Smoot's making this team. And I still feel like Javon Sullivan, even, with the good pass rush on Thursday, at least a singular one, he's raw, a lot of room to grow, a lot to learn, which I've said many times. I think Von Miller could play a very big role in the growth and development this year for Javon Sullivan. But, Javon Sullivan, a pass rush specialist, he led the nation in college last year in sacks. If he does make enough splash at camp, who knows? Maybe he ends up ultimately challenging Dwayne Smoot to be that fourth defensive end who comes in and spells Groot and Von Miller and A.J. Epinesa. So I thought that was an interesting tweet from Sal Capaccio. Offensive line, too. I wanted to make sure I hit on that. The rotation. After the starters, day two, I didn't see anything on day one, but day two, Anthony Prohaska was tweeting out rotation combinations, and I found that interesting. It's very apparent that at least with a handful of these guys, they are definitely, Sean McDermott and Aaron Cromer are definitely looking for versatility. Leal Collins, and again, starters stayed the same. Short of 4 of the 5 starters are an absolute complete lock. I would say David Edwards might not be a complete lock, but close to as a lock as you can get without actually being one to play that left guard spot. But anyway, the veteran, Leal Collins, he got some reps at left guard, and then he also got some reps with right tackle. And again, these were all second-team offensive linemen mixing and matching when Mitch Trubisky would get the reps as the quarterback. So yeah, Leal Collins, left guard, right tackle, the rookie 6-rounder, Tylen Rabel, he had a set at left tackle, and then he kicked in to left guard. Alec Anderson, a guy who I think the Bills are pretty high on from last year. They've developed him now for a while. He played some guard and some center, as did free agent signing Will Clapp. He also played some guard and also played some center. Ryan Vandermark worked both sides offensive tackle spots. He played some left tackle. He played some right tackle. I feel like at this point, again, barring injury, I feel like Ryan Vandermark, you could slot him in. I think he's going to be that third tackle. I think he's going to be that swing tackle for the Bills this year. So anyway, he played both offensive tackle spots. The rookie, Van Pran Granger, only played third-team center. So I know a lot of people were talking about him potentially being a Cinderella story, who, if Connor McGovern struggles some at center, might actually start as a rookie at center. Not going to say it's impossible, not after 2 practices, but got a long way to go. The fact that he was the third team center is a little bit telling. Like they're giving Alec Anderson reps there. They're giving Will Clapp reps at center. So even if Connor McGovern were to get hurt or falter, it would be far from a lock that the 5th round rookie from Georgia would come in and be that starter as of right now. So this is going to become, if it's not already, I know the offensive line's not flashy, it's not always fun to follow, and it's not fun to really watch, especially at training camp when you're looking at skill position players so much more. But I think the starting 5 for the Bills offensive line is set. I think Vandermark making this team is set. I think Fran Granger making this team, even if he's only the 3rd string center to start, he's a 5th round rookie, he's not getting cut. I think that's set. So that's 7 guys on the offensive line, which probably leaves 2 spots. 2 spots likely on the 53-man roster, maybe 3 if they were to keep 10 offensive linemen. It's not impossible, but for sure 2. And you have candidates that would likely Leal Collins, Anderson, Rabel, and Clapp. Those 4 guys, they're competing for sure 2 spots, maybe 3 spots. I know that Rabel might feel like a long shot. He's a 6th round rookie, but I'll say this. If he impresses at camp, if he has a good training camp and he has a pretty good preseason, it may be hard to cut him because it would be hard to sneak him onto the practice squad. There's 31 other teams watching, and getting good, young guys with upside and potential teams, there's going to be one team around the league that may want to get him on this roster. So, unlike a veteran, like let's just go to the defensive side. Say Deshaun Williams, a defensive tackle. If he's 31 years old and he's going to be the Bills' 5th defensive tackle, they may be more likely to cut him with the expectation that he might go unclaimed and end up on the Bills' practice squad. But if you got a rookie that's relatively impressive, a little bit harder to sneak him onto the practice squad. But anyway, the offensive line is definitely shaping up to be something to keep your eyes on for sure. All right, a real quick break here to let you know, hey, golf fans, and I know there's plenty of you out there watching and listening right now, want to let you know that whether you're a beginner that's brand new to the sport, trying to truly learn the game, or even if you're a regular fixture on the course, looking to get your game up to that next level by getting lessons, I'm here to tell you right now that the teaching pro you need in your life is definitely Jeff Metis, an award-winning PGA professional. Jeff has been helping golfers of all skill levels get the very most of their ability for nearly 3 decades. Jeff is also a well-known voice of golf off the course as well, as co-host of the Tee to Green Show on WGR 550 alongside Brian Cozio. Lessons with Jeff Metis will drastically change your game for the better. Trust me, I am seeing it right now firsthand. Visit www.mygolfdojo.com to book your lessons with Jeff Metis today. All right, a couple quick things before we get out of here. Enjoy your weekend. Mike Edwards started at free safety today. So day one, one of the big stories. I personally thought Matt Milano being a full participant, full go, to me, far and away was the biggest story. That's what I care about the most. But it was, you can't deny it. It was incredibly interesting that on day one of Bill's training camp, Damar Hamlin and not Mike Edwards got the start at free safety. Now, Mike Edwards has been hurt for a lot of the Bills offseason, so he hasn't really gotten to do too much work. So maybe in hindsight, it shouldn't have been all that surprising. But Damar Hamlin has put in a lot of work. He, by all counts, has looked bigger, and he earned an opportunity to work with the ones on day one of camp. Well, that lasted exactly one day, because on Thursday, it was Mike Edwards and not Damar Hamlin that was getting the work. I like Edwards to start. I feel like at this point with Sean McDermott, you know how Sean McDermott is with most players, he's just going to make him earn it. That's all. Mike Edwards is going to have to go out there and he's going to have to earn it. But look, the Bills like Mike Edwards, or they would have signed him for starters. But this is a guy that's won. He hasn't been a full-time starter, but he has started. He started in the playoffs last year for the Chiefs. He's won 2 Super Bowls with 2 teams. He brings a winning mentality to this organization. And look, you're not going to replace Poyer and Hyde. Well, at least you're not going to replace the Poyer and Hyde that Bills fans and content creators and media have come to know and love through 7 years, up until maybe say last year. But this is a new defense, a new look. And Mike Edwards is a player that I think they brought in with the designs on him starting. Now, Damar Hamlin is in the mix. He deserves to be in the mix. He should be in the mix. But I feel like day 2 is a little more how I would expect things to go. And that's with Mike Edwards as the starter, which is kind of funny because I spent a lot of time leading up to training camp talking about how potentially the biggest battle to start week 1 for the Bills going into camp. Like when you looked at this roster and you were like, who are position battles? Like who might not start? Like who's not written in pen as a starter? And I thought it was going to be Taylor Rapp, the other safety position. I thought Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop were going to have themselves a good old-fashioned throwdown to see who was the starter. It sounds to me, from everything I've heard, and to some extent, maybe I'm reading between the lines in the wrong kind of way with Sean McDermott, but it sounds to me like Taylor Rapp has a pretty good grasp, at least initially anyway, on starting this season as that Jordan Poyer replacement as a starting strong safety, with Bishop kind of a decent length away as things stand right now. Okay, going back to Sean McDermott and his opening comments before camp open on Wednesday, he kind of even alluded to it a little bit about Bishop. I don't want to put words in Sean's mouth, but that he's not in the greatest shape. Now, I know he was also banged up for some of the offseason, so it's not to suggest, the rookie Cole Bishop's a lazy guy who's not working to stay in shape. I think it's maybe he had a knee injury or something like that, or bothersome knee or something like that. But anyway, it's pretty obvious he doesn't feel like Cole Bishop is 100% in NFL shape right now. And then he talked about having to earn, he might see him in some packages and stuff like that. And then ultimately could become a starter. But I feel like kind of like just 2 days now in the camp, I really feel like this is going to be Taylor Rapp's job to lose. So I think Taylor Rapp is going to start. And then I think, again, Mike Edwards, Damar Hamlin, they might go back and forth. But ultimately, at the end of the day, just my own personal opinion, but I think Mike Edwards is going to be the starter there as well. Biggest news maybe for the Bills for a second straight day, which at the end of the day matters the most, is the injury front. Nothing serious again. Day 1, Chase Claypool got a little dinged up, but he was fine after practice, and he practiced on day 2. Day 2 here on Thursday, Cam Lewis got dinged up, lower left body injury, but I don't think he practiced anymore, but I saw reports that he was back with his helmet on. Alex Brasky talked about him doing he saw him on a scooter with a little left sleeve on his leg, but it didn't look like anything serious. So hopefully nothing serious for Cam Lewis. Look, obviously, again, injuries are the most important thing. And we could sit here, I could come on this show every day, or you could watch and listen to other shows, and they'll talk about how Josh Allen threw a ball to Keon Coleman, or what kind of cuts Ray Davis is making, or that Javon Sullivan beat Spencer Brown in a one-on-one drill. And I'm not saying those are meaningless by any means, but what matters at the very most, at the end of the day, is that we're not talking about injuries. That's what means the most, far and away. Certain veterans like Matt Milano, Daquan Jones, Von Miller, no news is good news when it comes to those guys. So the less we're talking about Von Miller, Daquan Jones, Matt Milano, when it comes to that stuff, the better. So that'll about do it for this episode. In terms of practices, upcoming practices, well, you're watching, most of you will be watching or listening to this on Friday. The Bills are practicing on Friday today for most of you. Off Sunday or off Saturday. I'm sorry. They're off Saturday. And then they practice again Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday next week before they're off again on Wednesday. When I pick back up with you on Monday, I'll have Joe from Queens on with me. We're going to have a few more practices in the books to talk about. You all know if you're a regular on this show, how much Joe absolutely despises training camp, but I'll squeeze some thoughts and takes out of him for sure. And then again, one last reminder. Well, not last reminder for today. Joe Marino, Locked On Bills, is going to be joining me live from Sunny Reds next Wednesday night, and we will have a hell of a lot to talk about. I cannot wait for that. If you happen to live in the area, which, by the way, Sunny Reds is on Abbott Road, Lackawanna, kind of close to the Orchard Park Porter. It's like maybe, 5 minutes or so from Highmark Stadium. So if you're going to be around that area and you want to meet Joe, you want to have a little chat with him, come up to Sunny Reds next Wednesday night. Going to be a real good time. But anyway, for me, Patrick Moran, that's going to do it. Hopefully this will be an uneventful couple days of practice with the Bills before we have a brand new show again next Monday. Again, dudes, end of July, get out there, enjoy the summer. Talk to you soon.